All right, another episode. As you can see, rear end still dismantled. That is because I got an impact. Let me get down here a little bit. So I bought myself a nice Milwaukee M18 impact to try to get the crush washer to crush, and as you can see, it ended up tearing the threads up of the pinion. So that pinion's done. You can kind of see the threads are gone in there. I went ahead and ordered another ring and pinion, so basically going to have to start from scratch, redo this whole thing. So I've just kind of left it dismantled for now. As you can see there, that's a socket. And this part here had sheared off during some of my attempts to get this crush washer to crush. Still not sure what the heck was causing it to not crush, but we'll get everything new. I ended up buying two new crush washers, new bearings. That one is not easy to get off with the setup that I have and be able to not destroy the bearing. So went ahead and just bought a new bearing for that. That bearing in there should be good, the front bearing. But I bought a new seal, so I'll pull that off and put my setup bearing for basically redoing all the shims, because now we're going to have to make sure that the new ring and pinion are in spec, because they're not going to match this ring and pinion. So bad thing is, ring and pinion is back ordered till November. So I went ahead and worked on the exhaust. So let me kind of show you what I have going on here. Don't mind my horrible welding skills, but that's where we're at. So I have the pipe coming down with a cat. The cats I bought already had O2 bungs for the rear O2s, so that's nice. Still haven't welded one into the front. Basically mocking everything up. Basically 2.5 into a 3-inch. Went to start cutting the pipe because I've got a little bend to go over here, and my cutter blade is not cutting anymore, and having some issues with the cutter getting it dismounted from my little plate. So I'll be working on that probably tomorrow to basically start working on this section. This is the factory exhaust. I'll be removing that, but I want to get the thing here and have a V-band. That way it's kind of similar to factory. So that's why I've left this up here, is just to tell me where I need to go. And then once I get it here with the V-band, then I'll go ahead and take the rear section off and start welding up the cat back. But once I get this section, I have a flex pipe that's going to go right here, just like the factory Y pipe. Once I get that, I'll remove the whole exhaust that I have fabbed so far, fully burn it in, and then I can at least start it and get some idle tunes or idle logs with the O2s and start working on getting at least the idle tune situated while I'm building the cat back and waiting for the ring and pinion. So that's kind of where we stand. I also did a V-band here and over there. It won't hang there. I'll be spinning it up. This was just for me to mock it up. But my whole purpose for that is whenever I do, I'm planning on switching out the fluid, dumping the pan, putting a new filter on it before I start driving this thing. And so removing this section will allow me to pull the pan without having to pull, all the way up to the header. So that's my thinking of that. This is very, very close to the factory location. So probably once I start driving this thing around and getting all the bugs worked out, I'm going to get the AEV skids. I think that's the one I'm going to go with. And they should clear this. So that'll be kind of one of the things I get after we get this thing driving on the road and start working out the bugs. And then I'll do an update once I get those and kind of see how that clears. But that's kind of where we stand right now. Let me crawl up here. And I can kind of show you. So you can kind of see how tight it was up in there. Should have plenty of room right here. Well, I shouldn't say plenty, but should have enough room right there that even with some movement, we won't be hitting that front drive shaft. But it's pretty tight in there. I mean, the O2 right here, you can see the bung. It's pretty much gonna be right on top of the fuel lines, but it should have enough clearance for vibration and such. But yeah, we got it around the drive shaft. That's probably the biggest hurdle. This section took me quite a bit, and then getting this cross pipe took quite a bit as well. But yeah, I think we're looking pretty. Alright, I'm gonna go show you some other stuff over at the table. Okay. Now, since I had to wait for the ring and pinion, I pulled the old ring off. I decided to dismantle the locker just to kind of check things over. I don't know if I covered this in a video, but this is the thrust block. So your pin that goes in here to basically keep the axles pushed out and from coming in too far basically locks the C-clamp, or not C-clamp, but the C-clip into place. There's a pin that goes through the center of this, and then the pin retainer screws into there, goes through the pin, keeps the pin in place. Well, you can kind of see mine has this wear right here. It's on all. This side isn't as bad, but this side here is pretty bad. I'm not a big fan of that wear, and when I pulled the fluid, it's silver from all the shavings from this. No solid chunks, but this goes down into here. The only way to pull it out is to dismantle the locker, but I'm trying to see if I could, as you can see with it on the pin, it's has a little bit of rotation, which is what wears that out. So I'm playing around. I'm going to draw this in CAD and maybe get it made, depending on how good I can get it drawn up in CAD. I may get one made in brass, depending on how the pricing of that is. And the reason I'm going to go with brass is because, with this being aluminum, I'm assuming it's basically a wear part. So aluminum is softer than the metal that the gears are made out of. So that if this does move around, this is going to wear and not the gears. Brass is similar. It's softer, but it's a little harder than aluminum. Anybody that's taken apart like a manual transmission or a motorcycle transmission, all of the shift forks that basically sit on the gears and move them, they end up being brass. So they'll sit like this. I wish I had some because I've rebuilt a motorcycle transmission before. But they'll sit like this and they move the gear back and forth. Those are brass because if it moves the gear and moves a little bit, it'll wear the brass and not the gear. So going to see what I could do while I'm waiting on the gears. So I pulled this out, dismantled this so I can pull this. I'll start taking all the measurements off of it, get it drawn up, see how good I can get it. My big concern is they might charge a lot having to basically machine in threads, but I don't know. We'll see. I found a place online where you can send them CAD files and they'll machine whatever you want out of brass. So hopefully this isn't too complex. I mean, basically machine the lines, 2 circles, and then the threaded part. It should be good. But for those interested, this is what the inside of the locker looks like. You have your gear here. I don't know all the nomenclature of all this stuff, but funny thing that GM does. So as you could see here, the engagement and disengagement, this gear here basically rides, and then when the locker is engaged, it pushes this gear out to engage this one. And so I don't typically engage my locker while moving. I always come to a complete stop. But there may be been a time or two where I didn't. And even with me being very careful with that, you can see I've already got tooth wear. It's not too bad. I mean, I've seen pictures of worse, and it's only this gear that's worn. As you can see, this gear has no wear on it whatsoever. So it may just be from it going and getting partially engaged. But I'm just going to run this, keep running it until it gives out, because those that don't know, the GM locker for the ZR2 is proprietary to the ZR2, and Eaton, or basically any drivetrain shop I've called, emailed, discussed this with, cannot get a single part for this thing. That's what I was trying to do with this. Don't sell this part, and they're likely not going to sell this part. One idea I had is, since this is pretty much, I mean, it's a little chamfered here, but this side of the gear looks fine, so I was like, oh, I'll just flip it. Well, GM gets you there, and you can see there's these two right here are a different dimension than the rest, so it can only go in one way. So we are stuck with running this, but that'll be okay. I just watch it more closely, engaging and disengaging the locker, make sure that I'm at a complete stop, not under load. But those interested on how the locker works, there's an electromagnet that is where that wire is. You hit the button. I think I covered this a little bit. It stops this from spinning, which will push that pin up the ramp like that. And that's the pin going up and down, which in turn pushes this up and down, which then engages this gear, which engages the other axle to do forward motion and locks the spider gears. Those that don't know, when your diff is open, that axle would be spinning forward, and then these spider gears would be spinning around, and there wouldn't be power going to the axle that would come out this way, which is I believe that's the driver's side. That axle would be the passenger side. So when you engage the locker, that pops up, engages the gear. Now both axles are spinning forward and you're good. Spider gears don't move. I'm sorry, the spider gears don't move anyways. It locks this gear, sorry. I hope I explained that well. The spider gears don't move. This gear, basically, I guess that's kind of hard to describe, but just know that that pops up, engages this, and now they both go forward. The spider gears move, but it's kind of... There we go. So as this spins like this, as you can see, it would be spinning this one kind of the opposite way. Probably not explaining that very well. But there's plenty of videos on the internet. You can see how an open differential works. The locker, electromagnet, pushes that up, engages the gear. Now both sides spin. So that's where the locker stands. We'll wait for the new ring and pinion. Oh yeah, there's also a spring that sits in here. And the spring is what, when you disengage the locker and this has to push away to go back to an open diff, the spring provides the tension to allow that. But we got everything taken apart. Let me cover everything up. I can keep it somewhat clean for now. This is actually the other side. Nothing really special. But that's your lesson for the day. Granted, it was a horrible one. But that's where we're kind of standing right now. So hopefully the rest of this weekend I can get my cutter situated with a new blade, and I can at least want to get to the catback, the end of the front portion of the exhaust, and then that way I can burn everything in hopefully tomorrow. So we'll see how that goes. If that goes good, I'll mount all the O2s. I think I've mentioned this before. I'm running 5, 2 upstream, 2 downstream, and a wideband. So I've got to weld in 3 O2 bungs into that as well. Get them mounted so they have enough clearance, and then I've got to wire the wideband. So hopefully I can do that. I'd like to burn in everything by tomorrow, and then next weekend can run the wiring for the wideband and start logging. And then hopefully next weekend pull a couple logs, send those to my tuner, and then I'll start working on the catback. And hopefully the weekend after I will have gears. And we'll get back to that. Once the gears are done, at that point, well, I still have to do the front gears. So once I get the exhaust done, I'll be doing the front gears. So hopefully that one goes a lot smoother than the rear has been going. And then we can start driving this thing, getting all the bugs worked out, and go from there. All right. I covered a little bit in this video, but I wanted to try to at least give an update, even though there's not a huge amount of work that's been done. And like always, if anybody has any questions, let me know in the comments. I'll either answer them there or show it in another video if it's something that's better represented by a visual. Catch you guys on the next one.